God of War Ragnarok is getting free DLC called Valhalla and it's already coming on December 12th. We got a ton of info from the reveal trailer where we see Kratos venture into Valhalla, including the introduction of a new enemy type. Well, I say new, but longtime fans will of course recognize the Cyclops from the Greek trilogy, which is going to be especially cool if you've played those games, as fighting this familiar creature with a new combat system is going to be very different. But I hope this is just a teaser and that there are more elements from Kratos' Spartan past in the DLC. The trailer certainly suggests so, because as many people in the comments noted, it also uses music from the Greek trilogy of games. And considering the importance of musical themes in this series, that's definitely no coincidence. Going back to the Cyclops though, it is interesting they showed that specific enemy. If you compare the Norse and Greek games, a Cyclops has a similar role in combat as an ogre does in the current series. So it's an elite enemy and a threat for sure, but not a boss. And if we are going all the way back to Greece, I'd imagine we get to see at least one of the epic bosses from that story return as well. I've always said that the apparition of Zeus in Hell would come back, and well, this looks like the perfect opportunity to bring that up again. And while we are seemingly going back to older times, Valhalla will actually serve as an epilogue for God of War Ragnarok. While story details are of course vague, we for one know that it has to do with the new path that Kratos saw on the back of the final Jotun shrine. And two, that it will be a deeply personal and reflective journey for Kratos, meaning the spotlight will very much be on him. What is good to note is that even though it is an epilogue, it sounds like you can access Valhalla before the game's ending too. The official blog post notes, we do recommend that you finish God of War Ragnarok first, which implies that it is not necessary to finish the game before you access the DLC. But if you haven't, I mean, what are you doing? Go finish the game, the story is amazing. We also know a lot about the gameplay for Valhalla, which might actually surprise you, so if you like the video so far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe as well for more God of War videos.
Dennis chiming in here with a word from our sponsor that makes everything possible. It's one of the most popular games in the world, Dungeon Fighter Online. It has been played by over 850 million people. It's completely free and still gets big content updates. You can choose from more than 60 class advancements, all with their own unique design and skills that you can improve and upgrade even more to really make them fit your playstyle. Like finding your favorite character and learning how to chain the combos together is key to quickly clear the dungeons alone or with friends. You can also fight other people online, and they now added a brand new dungeon called Codename Gaybolk, where after clearing a floor you can select a support option that will then help you out in the next encounter. There's also the level up power up event, where you can for the first time boost 2 characters at once instead of only 1, and it's also not too late to get a ton of Thanksgiving rewards and benefits from the Lucky 7 event, so totally download the game now for free via the special link in the video description. Like, these items are only available for a limited time, so you gotta be fast. Thanks to Neeple for sponsoring the video, and now Dennis, back to you. What will the gameplay be like in this God of War DLC?
Thanks Jordan, and I'm glad you asked that question, because Ragnarok's DLC will take a pretty different approach to gameplay and specifically progression. It's a separate mode where you won't carry over any progression from your regular save. No, instead everyone starts with the same unlocks. Kratos will have his entire skill tree maxed out at the start of Valhalla, and you'll have access to all your weapons as well. It's interesting though, as in the footage the weapons seem to be at a base upgrade level, which could mean they're transmogged, or it could mean that upgrades are available within a run. You also need to pick one shield and one Spartan Rage ability at the start of each run, because while you have the choice between all of them, you cannot switch them out mid-run. And I say run a lot because yes, this DLC epilogue is heavily inspired by the roguelite genre, meaning that when you die, you are sent back to the start of the level and lose some of your progression and have to try again. So it's really made with replayability in mind. And again, that's why you need to make some build decisions before you start playing, although arguably the most important choice is the difficulty you select. You pick one at the start of a run and then have to stick with it, although if you die, you can change it depending on if you found things too easy or too difficult. There are 5 difficulties to pick from, and they are a bit different from the regular game, with Give Me Mastery now being the highest one. Which means that will probably give you even more headaches than Give Me God of War does. Not like that's going to stop me from trying, especially since higher difficulties yield more rewards. I want to go over what those do in a bit, but on a final note for preparation in the DLC, armor in Valhalla is completely cosmetic, so you can just pick your best look when going through the new content. And there are new looks to be unlocked as well, as Santa Monica also showed these 2 new variants of the Ares armor, with a new red variant with glowing eyes on the shoulders that looks very cool. So that's everything you start your run with, and then you venture through the doors to Valhalla and enter in a series of combat encounters. While we don't know this for certain, the trailer footage implies we're fighting a wave of enemies in a closed off arena before we can venture forth into new one. And while there will at least be one new enemy type, the footage we have mostly shows enemies from base game Ragnarok. Which is fine by me. I think Ragnarok's enemy variety is really good, so fighting these familiar foes in a new challenge should still be a lot of fun. But yeah, we can see that Draugr, Raiders, Elves and Einherjar are all returning, but the blog post does note that we'll face new combinations of enemies. So enemies that would normally not appear together because they were tied to certain realms or factions can now join forces, which should be interesting. The only other opportunity to fight multiple factions of enemies at once is in some of the Muspelheim challenges, so I'm curious to see what the studio has been cooking. What should also make encounters a bit more challenging is the absence of a companion. It's noted in the blog post that Kratos travels to Valhalla with Mimir alone. So unless there's a mechanic where you can unlock and or summon companions during a run, the Spartan will be added alone. But he will grow more powerful as there are two kinds of buffs you can acquire in Valhalla, temporary and permanent ones. Temporary ones can boost one of your stats for a short time, which I think is what this brazier is for, also showing the in-game icon for strength. And then these chests that I'm guessing are granted at the end of an encounter will reward you with things like runic attacks or armor perks that will last through your entire run. Because remember, armor is only cosmetic, so the perks on the gear you're actually wearing do nothing in Valhalla. But yeah, this is of course where a big part of the replayability comes from, as this means that you need to experiment with different perks, stats and runic attacks each run. But since Valhalla is a roguelite, not a roguelike, there is some permanent progression as well. And while details on these permanent upgrades are a bit vague, the blog lists that they affect both Kratos and even Valhalla itself. Very intrigued as to what that last part means. Maybe there's a way to manipulate what encounters you get during a run. I'm at least guessing those new armor cosmetics are something we unlock with this permanent upgrade system. But yeah, this means that every run should give you some form of reward. Even if you don't get far, you're at least gathering more resources that help towards permanent upgrades. And again, if you play on higher difficulties, you'll gain increased rewards, meaning you can unlock more of these upgrades sooner. And well, while I certainly did not expect Ragnarok to get a roguelike DLC, we do have some context as to what roguelike gameplay in God of War looks like. While nowhere near as complex as Valhalla will likely be, the Niflheim realm in God of War 2018 also featured semi-randomized encounters and resources that were lost upon death. While Ragnarok significantly improved on side content when compared to the first game, one thing that was missing in my opinion was a replayable endgame experience like Niflheim. Sure, the Muspelheim challenges were fun, but once you've completed them, you've kind of seen it all. Still though, I do think Valhalla can pull some inspiration from that realm too, as the different combat objectives and modifiers can make consecutive combat encounters a lot more interesting. So while I certainly wouldn't complain if Valhalla is just back-to-back fights against waves of enemies, some extra objectives thrown in the mix for bonus rewards would be even more fun. Either way, I'm incredibly excited for this new content, both for the added story, gameplay changes and of course some new monsters to fight. And the fact that it's available for free and in just a few days from now, I mean, hats off to Santa Monica Studios, what an amazing, presumably final addition to an already amazing game. And I'll be streaming the DLC when it goes live, plus we have a ton of God of War videos on the channel as well, so subscribe to not miss those, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and watch our previous video on the game's New Game Plus update by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one, goodbye.